Welcome to What's My Thesis. I am your host, Javier Proenza. Today, my guest is Hagop Najarian. Is that how you say the last name?
Najarian.
Najarian. Okay, sorry.
Jesus.
I'm sorry. I can't read.
Do you know the origin of the word?
No.
Najar means carpenter, and all Armenian last names end with IAN, which means son of. So I am actually a son of a carpenter.
Oh, really?
My family were carpenters, so I'm
Jesus?
No, Najars, but it's better than being a son bitch, you know what I'm saying? No, Najarian. Yeah, thank you.
Well, cool, man. So we know each other. We're fellow Bendix building people. You are a member of Durden and Ray. How long have you been in Durden and Ray?
3 years, yeah. I started around the COVID times, 2019, 20. Well, I started in November of 2019, then COVID hit, and it's been great. We managed through all the virtual Zoom stuff and virtual shows, and yeah, been with Durden and Ray about 3 years now.
3 years. How, can you describe the organizations and how you guys are set up? Because, like, for example, Monte Vista, we've got a bunch of members. We're more of a curatorial thing. What do you guys do?
I think it is a curatorial-based idea, to bring in LA, bring in shows of people showing in LA. Mm-hmm. But with COVID, it went international. We did a lot of international shows. Max Presnel is, of course, one of the founders of it, and he kind of spearheaded a lot of international shows. So we did international exchanges where we would go there, they'd come here, and then COVID happened, and it still happened through, internet and Zoom, virtual stuff. But it's a curatorial practice, I think. Mm. And we're at 26 now, and we'll shortly be announcing we got 4 new members coming in. So it's kind of pumping right now. There's a lot of great energy. And
you guys just had your what's it called? Your fundraiser
when everything sold. The walls were blank.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. That was pretty wild. And you played some accordion, which you are a musician, so that people know. We were talking a little bit about your guitar collection.
Oh yeah.
What are you said that you had some really good. You got some good buys when they were cheap in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s you could pick up the recycler at any 99 cents at any liquor store, and it was basically Craigslist. So if you lived in LA, Orange County, or wherever, you just look up in that area, guitars, musical instruments, and they'd pop up. So yeah, I got 4 or 5 of my gems, which are 2 really good Rickenbackers from the 80s and Gibsons. And
those are guitars, the Rickenbackers?
6-string guitar. And actually bass. My friend Neil got a bass Rickenbacker that I now own. But yeah, it was a, fruitful time. And even if you spent $800, $1,000 on a guitar, it was like, ouch. But those are worth now 10 times that.
Yeah. So, well, Rickenbacker, you can't even buy them from like regular outlets. They have them like Guitar Center, and but you have to call to get a price quote.
Yeah, they don't
have like listed prices, because I think that I don't know if it is because they fluctuate or whatever.
Well, it takes them a year to make each one. So they do them in batches of. I've been watching these guys since I'm 16. I love them. And but back to your point, I was trained on the accordion, immigrating from Beirut. The first instrument I learned in La Mirada was accordion, but I played it for about 7 years, mainly for my dad, and then he passed and punk rock happened, so I picked up a guitar and played, so to speak, and it was magic. I think anyone who learns an instrument really well first with keys and scales and all that technical stuff, you can pick up other instruments. So yes, I played accordion at the Durden and Ray function, which I think was pretty good. It revved everyone up.
It was fun. It was a great show. We had fun.
People were hyped.
Yeah. It was crowded as shit too.
Well, and for those of you that weren't there, we did it during the raffle. So there was the fundraiser where there were $50 paintings, which all sold mainly, and then a raffle. And, the hype on the raffle building up, I thought it'd be good to play accordion. And it was holiday music. I was playing Christmas.
Oh, it totally didn't feel like you were imposing your accordion. Yeah, you sound a little defensive.
That's why my wife will tell you that's the thing with the accordion. It's like, 3 songs in. First everyone's like, oh, the accordion. Then you played for like 3 songs. They're like, the accordion. It's just this bump, 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 bump.
Yeah.
It's a good instrument. So.
No, it's a solid instrument. And I think the most famous accordionist that I can think of is Weird Al. And,
Well, and that happened in the 80s, but some of us are old enough. When I moved here, there was a Lawrence Welk show on TVs every Saturday. And that's why my family, we'd have the big Armenian meals, and everyone would sit around and go, see, that could be you. Now play. And then every Saturday I'd have to play a song. Everyone would sing and dance. It was awesome.
That is such a sweet story of like immigrant ambition for creating.
And I use it all the time when I lecture about my work to students, because to be an artist, you have to be willing to embarrass yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you're putting it all out there. And from an early days, I was like 7, 6, playing accordion to the whole family and getting ridiculed, but still having to play. It was just like, you got to fight for it. And it was this weird fucking accordion thing too. And I was like, all right, but it's kind of cool. No, it's really difficult to play, because the bass is on the left, keys are on the right, and yeah.
I have no idea what the fuck you were doing. I was watching you play and I didn't know what the sounds were coming from. I was like, wait, because I always had this idea of how it works, but it's completely mechanically wrong, I'm sure. So, but yeah, I mean, guitars are pretty awesome too. So you grew up, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a really dumb question.
No.
Is Beirut in Armenia? No. Okay, no.
I'm sorry, geography. No, it's in Lebanon.
Lebanon, okay.
But, and this is a good history for people that don't know from the first genocide. Excuse me, my grandfather, Hagop Sr., my namesake, survived. But a lot of folks went from Armenia to Beirut. Some went to Syria, some went to France. Beirut was definitely a huge Armenian population. So yeah, I grew up there at 65 to 69. Okay. And then we came here basically because of the civil unrest.
And where is Armenia geographically?
Oh, are you kidding? It's sandwiched between Russia and Turkey. That's why it was neutral. That's why Turkey, when they did what they did, they were like the German and Jew. They were already Armenians living in Turkey that they scapegoated as, and killed. But it's the same thing. It was all about religion and power. But yeah, Armenia sits between Russia and Turkey.
So then, I don't think I know too much about it, and I don't want to bum the audience out too much, but can you just give a brief history of what happened in the Armenian genocide? So is it basically? Really? I mean, I'm just
That's not my thesis, man. I'm here to talk about my thesis.
I mean, but you told me that. Well, you told me there's some cultural things that are interesting that I think you mentioned that sound.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
like the 6 kids for everyone that died. It's not like it's not.
Well,
cultural.
That's why I was telling Javier, when you have he asked me how many children I have, and I said 9. I've only got 2. Dash and Heavy, love you. But when I was young, growing up, if you got married, all the old dudes would come up to you and be like, Daro Tzedkezi, which means now it's your turn, move it on. And then they'd say for every 6, for everyone that died in the genocide, you need to make 6 children. Which was really, not particular in Armenia. I think anyone who survived crazy annihilations of your culture.
And I think just in general back then, I mean, my grandfather's family had 13 kids too. So generally you would make a lot anyway.
Yeah, the nuclear family was all about,
It's have kids and see how many will stick.
Or how many of them don't become artists. No, in a nutshell, I mean,
how many siblings do you have?
I do have 4 sisters. And that's the other thing. I'm the only boy, so I'm like the pasha, the king, the one that in the patriarchal culture, like most Mediterranean cultures, that they kind of bow their heads to. But my dad, not now to get somber, right? But my dad died when I was 13, and my mom died when I was 23. So my sisters and I became very close and supported each other. They kicked my ass, and there was no hierarchy of gender at all because everyone.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen Punch Drunk Love with?
Exactly.
I have sisters. I totally related to that movie.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, the Armenian genocide is tragic and terrible. And the best thing I could say is Hitler said, yeah, we'll get away with what we're doing. No one remembers what happened to the Armenians. So,
okay.
I mean, it was the blueprint of annihilate the whole culture. I mean, it's terrible things we
don't have to get into the details.
No, trudging them through the desert and then strapping them all together with barbed wire, pouring gasoline on them and putting them in the Euphrates River. So children and women and everything.
Right.
And on a side note, my grandfather survived it was a great story he told at his 100th birthday of, he hid, he saw his parents beheaded in the streets basically, and then he escaped and he hid. And then my grandmother, who was then taken as a sort of Turkish love slave, right, young girl, was cooking and cleaning and doing all that in a cave-like thing, and he hid out there, and they came through and went, any Armenians here, any Armenians? And she lied and said no. And he told us at his 100th birthday with generations of all of us looking, and if that split minute didn't happen, we wouldn't be here. So,
yeah.
And my story is the same for every genocide survivor and, people that have escaped their terrible situations. So
that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that you, I literally only know that about it mostly through Kim Kardashian, which is
Yeah.
Goes to Hitler's point.
Well, no. Students always say, "Oh, Najarian, you're Armenian, like Kardashian." I'm like, they're not Armenians, they're hoes. No, but no. God bless them. They've used the capitalist, famous thing to their advantage and made it what it is. Armenians are hardcore, and they're very much Christians, who they are. That they love their thing, and they always. But Glendale. Take a trip to Glendale. You'll see it all.
Yeah. I think that is also one of the nationalities or ethnicities that people confuse me with.
Yeah,
Armenian.
you could be Armenian.
Yeah.
Yeah, but growing up, no one knows what it was, and it's still its own language. It's not like an Arabic, derivative language thing. And that's why Armenians are so hopped up. They say their language came out of the Bible. Mount Ararat is mentioned in the Bible and the alphabet and this and that. But Armenians are pretty proud.
Yeah. I mean, I used to meet some in Italy and Florence. There were a bunch of Armenians because there's a lot of migration. Like I think as migrant workers, they would go over there.
Yeah, my distant aunt I never visited. One of the sisters of one of my aunts is, or the brother. When I was in Florence, I wish I'd seen them, but tripped me out that they're like Armenians in these other places.
Yeah. But I mean, like same thing with the Jews.
Yeah. But like in Italy, when I was in. It was Venice had a whole, cathedral per Armeni, which is like the church for the Armenians. So, and it's Catholic, which also tripped me out because like the Christian Catholic, we don't have to go in all that stuff. It's a long.
Yeah, but anytime you have like refugees that are leaving a place, you're going to have a lot of different like places where you're like, holy shit. Like I didn't know that Vietnam had a huge Vietnamese, or France had a huge Vietnamese
that's true.
Community. And then that's just to show like how little I know about the history. Because if you know anything about Vietnam, it makes sense that there would be. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when I was a kid, I went to a private school in Italy, like that was British. So all of my schooling was like Anglo-Saxon, and like history about like of kings and whatnot, and medieval history and whatever. But when I got over here, I realized that that's the same thing for like Americans. So there's like a huge American gap in my history, but also it's very, I think it's an interesting thing. I don't think if you're Armenian, you really hear about this stuff. Yeah. It's not like covered openly. Only when people call people out and they're like, oh, you should be canceled because you this and that. Like,
well, I think even here in LA and America, probably the last decade or two, it's, they had the big commemoration, 100 years of it. And,
this only happened 100 years ago?
No, 1914 to 1920s. But I'm just saying in 2014, they did a whole big, parade.
That's still way more recent than I thought.
Oh, yeah. It's not like super 1700s. It's like 19. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, that's why Hitler the Ottoman Turks were smart to use the World War I, like the timing of countries were kind of unstable to just do what they did, Right. But it goes to, we're still seeing it today with Ukraine.
See it. We don't have to go into current events.
No, it's just all power and control and people that
resources. Always, it's always about resources. Yeah, it's like I want your shit.
Yes, definitely. It was land and power and grab, and kill people. But
yeah, it's unfortunately it's just one formula that just keeps getting played out like a fractal. Thing. But anyway, we can go into the safety of your topic.
Oh yeah, my topic. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
My thesis.
Your thesis.
So Javier wrote a prompt. What is this thesis for this? It's visual and audio DNA.
Okay.
Visual DNA and audio DNA or musical DNA.
Okay. So, but we're not speaking of like actual genetics. We're talking about as a metaphor DNA.
Well, I think, but psychologically, the stuff that's built into us visually and musically is our DNA of how we respond to look at art and hear music.
So you're talking maybe more about like, I mean, it's a heavy word, but like in the same sense that there's emotional trauma or generational trauma, there's maybe generational aesthetics.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's everything you think about the way you dress to, with music, like, right? Most people's influence of, whether it was the Beatles or, Michael Jackson or current artist, Beyonce, like people, and art too. I mean, I think you could probably blink your eyes and still think of that first impact of a painting or sculpture or photo that said, wow, that's that. I mean, I remember Norton Simon commercials on TV. And they'd say,
what's that?
The Norton Simon Museum.
Oh, that's a regional thing.
what the hell? You're doing a show like this? You don't know Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena?
No.
No. Yeah, it's a generous museum that Norton Simon collected all this great work, and it covers everything from early Renaissance to modern, but it stops at like Sam Francis maybe, but they show these images on the screen. It's like, come visit, see the Rembrandt, see the Goya, see the Picasso. And every time they showed that Picasso, the woman reading the book, I was like, wow, what is that image? And so that, like, the back to the visual DNA, like, those are the things that stick with you. Because, again, we were immigrants. My dad and grandfather were woodworkers. They made stuff out of just with basic tools, a plane and biscuits and, in the garage. And no one really painted. My sister kind of painted, but she went on to cosmetology. So, I'm going back to this history thing of we become who we are. And visual DNA. Like seeing that Picasso at whatever, I was probably 9 or 10. But I was really lucky, that's why I probably teach so hard. I had really amazing high school teacher that turned me on to that. And then
hold on, I want to maybe pin down the concept a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
Because so then what I'm hearing is that when you are looking at the Picasso as a kid, that's when you first realize that you have a taste in aesthetics, right? Is the DNA element what speaks to you particularly? So like maybe someone could have a reaction to a different artist or whatever.
I think we're all individually made up of these art experiences, music experiences, things that make our sensitivity to what we like. And that's what I'm saying.
So you think you're saying that not only did you have a proclivity to react to that, but it also becomes part of the DNA. It becomes part of the experience.
Yeah, and then it's layered, right? And you've got yours. Then you go on to school, and that's why I was getting to high school. Like I got turned on to art in high school and college, and then pursued it as a degree. And you learn all those artists, and you try different painting techniques, sculpture, even printmaking. But you kind of come back to these things that are grounding roots.
Yeah.
Music too, right? I mean, like for me, it was, again, most pivotal was punk rock. At 13, again, I played accordion, but when after my father passed,
there's nothing more punk than a fucking punk band with an accordion in it.
Well, yeah.
Did that ever happen?
Weird Al fucked that whole thing up because he started making goofy ass songs instead of really singing with the accordion.
But you could have taken.
No offense, Weird Al.
You couldn't have given it your. I don't think it's too late. I think you can.
I did.
You can turn the accordion. Okay, so you did perform in punk bands.
I was in a band called Worked World with skateboarders, Neil Blender and Eddie Glass, who are amazing musicians and artists. And it was. But again, it's like a novelty. You break it out, maybe one song in the end, and everybody's like, "Oh, the accordion!" You plug it in because it did have a cord. You could amplify it, put it through a fuzz box, a wah. It sounds rad.
You should have just had it every song, man.
Yeah.
Then it's still a gimmick. But
in my point, I was less than. I wanted to be a really good guitar player. I was pretty good at accordion. Again, I think the musical stuff that built me up, who I am, the audio stuff, that's why my thesis, I guess, would be I'm still doing this. I still make music. I'm still painting, and I'm trying to find visual and audio connects between the two. For me, it's different for everyone else. And again, back to the roots. I grew up with the Jam, the Clash, Sex Pistols, all of that English stuff, and then American bands, Black Flag, when punk happened here. That's probably still the way I think about writing songs. But then, you get older and you study the Beatles and you're like, whoa, these guys were layering. Well, okay.
Yeah.
And then I had a huge round with reggae and dub for years. I was just recording and love that. And but they all, like, if I pick up a guitar now, the first thing I'll play is a Jam song or a Who song. That's just who I am. But and then the accordion, I think the Middle Eastern music, like growing up with that kind of Middle Eastern vibe of.
Does it do microtonal or no?
Does it do what?
Microtonal?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Oh, it's Western or like Eastern.
It does drone.
Instead of half steps, it does quarter steps.
There's other drones, but it was like literally. It sounds cliche, but it would be like we all eat dinner. You spend the whole day making food, and then after dinner, like yalla Hagop, we'll get the accordion. What am I gonna play? I remember like unbuttoning out of the case and be like, Dad, what am I gonna? He's like, I don't care, son, play anything. They love it. I'm like, what do I play? You play, But I didn't
sounds a little fucking, what's it called? Joe Jackson?
And his kids, yeah. Michael, you go out there, A, B, C. But the thing was, I didn't really have to because these guys were so amazing. I had Uncle Kevork who would just clap, and then like that would ignite and they just start going off in Armenian, like yes, you go, tun you go, and then I'm like, okay, here goes. And
You're making me feel kind of guilty because my dad used to try to get us all to sing and stuff and sing with us, and we would all cringe. Yeah, and he was trying to keep that kind of tradition in life.
See what you did to him?
He was Cuban, so he had he grew up. His mom used to, and we would all just roll our eyes. So unfair. I'm sorry, Dad.
But when you hear one of those songs, doesn't it? I hate to use the word trigger, but it ignites something from that history.
Yeah, there's definitely some songs that he sang to me that
that's what I'm saying.
Definitely. I just feel like
you let him down. Are you the only boy?
No, I'm the second boy, so I'm the beta.
The oldest boy let him down. No, but so audiovisual DNA. It's not a crazy idea, right? We all do it. We're all artists. We have music we listen to in our studio, and but the more I've been painting. Because that's why I grew up, painting figures, telling stories, trying to, be like a figure painter. But then 2014, I had a sabbatical, and I just spent about 10 years, since then and now, just not painting images and just exploring color and sound. But I kind of felt weird making just abstract painting, so I tried to give it a little system. So I would give each instrument a color and how it played through a song. That's how the painting would look, then mixing like Bela Bartok with Ornette Coleman all on one painting. And so trying to limit myself to those colors based on those parameters of those artists, if they're going fast, slow, loud, quiet, so. And
so how do you correlate colors? Is it, do you do warmth to speed or warmth to,
I would do heat to volume, like a bright yellow or a white. White and black are the most powerful still when you make a colorful painting, right? Yeah. Polychrome. And then, I could have all these neutrals for subtle buried areas, right? And then have these flat shapes for more powerful punches and,
That's cool.
And then a nuance of transparency. That's why I went into acrylic. Also, taping off things using the gels, kind of doing, and then neon. I used a lot of fluorescent colors for a while, trying to.
That's what I'm drawn to now that I'm painting, so I can relate to that. But I'm also not trying to mix colors. Are you a paint mixer or do you go straight from the tube?
Oh, those guys are lame. I mix everything.
Okay, I'm a lamer. but I'm not a painter. I'm a conceptual artist. No, you're fine. You're fine.
No, that's why this thing behind me is all, I never owned a tube of raw sienna growing up. I made plenty of realistic or whatever earth tone paintings, fleshy, traditional Rembrandt, Kowalski. I had a yellow ochre, I had a Venetian red, a burnt sienna, a burnt umber. But I never really had raw sienna. And raw sienna is kind of an interesting, intense orange color, actually. It's a really good warm. So the painting behind me is kind of slowing down and just going. But it started with ink drawings. They're all just sort of sepia drawings that led. But like my talking, I talk too much. So
no, you're fine, dude.
No, not with you, but in general, my students will tell you, my family will tell you. No, but
No. I'm just trying to keep up, and basically, the next area that I want to talk about is kind of because there is a classical influence even on some of the abstraction stuff, right? It does make me feel like Italy in a weird way.
But back to when I was talking about talking loud, I'm painting is like talking, and so to use too many bright colors or too many outlandish things, I'm kind of trying to scale back. So then. During COVID, actually, I had a show last year at Launch LA. Thank you, James Bonozzo, great man. Gave me a shot there, and the figures came back because I was just kind of I was so sad about how the country's treating each other, and nobody's supporting each other, and there's so much rage in the world, especially with that knucklehead in the White House, And so the images came back, and the first one I did was Stonehenge and Us, which is figures holding each other up and kind of crumbling at the same time. And plus, I teach figure drawing and painting. So again, back to these intuitive hooks, the marks we make, I think are related to the way we learn to draw.
Yeah.
It's not I see a shoulder blade or kneecap. It's more that gestural feel of that is probably the way I made an abstract painting and then just trying to pull them together.
Do you find yourself wavering back and forth between doing more abstraction?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest,
it sounds like you're not happy just being fully abstract.
No, and I'm not happy with I'm a good storyteller, but I'm not a realist painter. I mean, I can do that, but it's not what I stay up all night worrying about the paint, So, and I'm not super pleased with these. These are pretty interesting right now. I moved here in June, so these are kind of airing. I'm very lucky that I have this big space to kind of air things out and just try these
It's ideas. A great space, yeah. There's a whole, unlike Serge's studio, there's a wall on this side too.
Yeah. There's a bunch of paintings over there. But I think, and then of course, as soon as you put the figure in, it has to mean something, so people start reading all this stuff into it. But
yeah, no, I can understand the challenge of that. It seems like you're trying to straddle an interesting line. I've seen some more of your figurative work that's a little bit more flat, like less volumetric.
Yeah.
I think that there is an interesting thing that happens when you start making something a little bit more that like has more weight to it and has more volume to it, which is kind of where like. Before, there were more geometric shapes that interlocked, whereas now they become figures. So that's an interesting thing. I totally relate to the feeling of like trying something new and it's a little bit different and it excites you, but you're not really sure about it. But then, but like I think that's a good space to be in, as you're moving forward.
Absolutely. The risk is right now. I mean, I'm trying to, in my own mind, take risks or kind of let them breathe and not be so absolute about how they have to be. And it's really drawing too. Like, I mean, just drawing with paint in these. I'm not really thinking I'm like painting, but like you said, the flat shapes kind of break. The ones on top though are always kind of simultaneously. I'm making those while I'm making like more bigger paintings too. And the one behind you is kind of good. I think people can see it. It's that one's like called Good Citizens. It's just kind of people sitting on a bench. So I started with red, white, and blue and just kind of let the colors happen, I guess. But in the end, everyone's kind of big hands are hugging and holding each other.
So like going back to the DNA element, because so the listeners sometimes get a little bored when we describe like the visuals too much. But not that we've gotten into that space, but I want them to know that I'm looking out for them. Because most people still listen on the air. So the DNA element of it is like. You have the Picasso experience. What other experiences, like what other people resonated with you as you were growing up? Because you do have a very specific thing where you're trying to balance abstraction with figure, which is one of the more challenging things because the figure is other people and we interact with them every day. So it visually as an object, that is something that's difficult to break. I mean, it's admirable to try and to take it on.
I think Giotto, when I spent a year in Rome for grad school through Tyler, Temple University, and
did you go? Is that the same program that Carl and Justin Michel went to?
I know Carl went there.
Then both of them went there. Just different times.
Tyler, we all overlapped by a few years. I know, but we've talked about it. Tyler was great, and again, Stanley Whitney was amazing. Who's really taken off as a huge influence, great mentor, and I was lucky.
So I wasn't talking shit. Like this is very Roman. This particular painting.
Well, no, they're all built in, dude. When I saw those Giottos, they just hit home. Yeah. They're like so crude and not because they're crude and clunky too. At times they're flat, and some of them. He was the one that started doing perspective, and then even like Duccio. Some of the early Renaissance that were they communicated about the human spirit so clearly, even though they didn't do their full realized Michelangelo forms yet, right? So Giotto is always there for me, Matisse, Gorky, of course, not just because he was Armenian, but how he ran a parallel life. When we talk about my grandfather, he was about the same age. Like the things he saw with his mom dying is kind of like what my grandfather lived through. But, I want to forward to contemporary painters like Dana Schutz, who I think is amazingly bridging. And she's controversial, I know, but...
What's she controversial for?
She had a painting in the Whitney Biennial a couple of years ago that kind of crossed lines, I guess, with race. And
is it the Emmett Till one?
I think so, yeah. Christina Quarles, who does amazing figurative work. But then like Jaquetta Crosby, the African painter who's incredibly loaded imagery with the flat patterns and collage and like flat form and beautiful color. Those are current painters, I think, that bridge everything I would want to do in painting. What I mean? So to the point of I grew up with these things and they've stayed with me. But like when we look at paintings, I would look at Velázquez and be like, wow, the dude can paint air. I might see Holbein and be like, that's really amazing. But like I didn't get like fully blown away. So we all react differently, that's all. And then
it's interesting to hear it because I like. Basically, it's mostly painting that gets you excited.
I was going to say, then you'd see, sculptures growing up that were impressive too, but then installation artists that have done stuff that are just kind of changing the way you communicate through form, storytelling, whatever. I guess it goes back to human nature, like how you're communicating about being alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think that's very interesting. The interest in narrative is very interesting because that is a very integral part of like that Renaissance period, like that you were talking about, Giotto. And for people that aren't that well versed in that time period of art history, like sculpture was kicking painting's ass by so much. Oh, yeah. It was like years and years and years in advance because to some degree, it's easier to translate something 3D to something 3D, right? Like there is a thing that like the coding that takes to make a 2D surface look three-dimensional was really what Giotto brought to the table. And and
the subject, though, everything was commissioned by the church to recreate a story from the Bible. So,
and then that's how people back then, the Elon Musks of the world would have bought their way onto these frescoes as like not even just as like side characters, as the actual characters in the story of like consequence.
Like Trump trying to be in the Mount Rushmore, like put me in there.
Even more so, like Trump trying to be in the Pietà.
Oh yeah, make me.
Like they would model a painting, and then so they would give all this money, and then that would patrons, and then that would get them into heaven. But then there was also like the raunchy shit too.
Well, Caravaggio, right? He was the street fighting, bar drinking, barfly dude who. He was rowdy, but he was so good. They found him on a beach in Malta.
Oh, really?
Dead after he killed someone and he was on the run at the last part of his life. And he'd go to town. Naples, I think the Seven Acts of Mercy was his last painting, one of them. He'd get paid for him and move on. And then he escaped and they found him dead on a beach. But he was a real character. I mean, he was a shit disturber, right? And
the reason I bring all that up because that is also in my DNA. That Giotto, especially that Renaissance time period, like the stuff that is in this painting, I definitely
connect to that way.
I mean, there's something really monumental going on, which is interesting because that's where I think the figure is like at least what I'm seeing in your work now. Versus like some of the flatter figurative stuff is that it's not necessarily, I don't read these, because of that drawing element, I don't read them as like humans, I read them as abstractions, but in that sculptural abstractions within a painting. Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? So like, I do, yeah. So like statuesque as opposed to, and monumental as opposed to like intimate. And does that make sense?
I do. And I get worried about that generalization of that's not a specific person. Who is it? But I guess I'm playing to the bigger picture. Like this one is called Good Samaritan. So again, it's just people kind of helping people. The horse is there. But see, then the horse gets fun. I'm sorry, those of you at home, but the horse is kind of overlaid by 4 images, kind of rotating, almost like a merry-go-round carousel thing. So that goes back to the creative process, though. The freedom and the joy in making it is still what excites me.
Yeah.
And that's what's also cool. I make sketches, but the paintings are never note for note of a sketch. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of artists that make these preliminary sketches, make a grid, and then map it out. Everything on the canvas has. No, that's fine. That's great.
I'm just too lazy.
I'm both lazy and I'm not lazy. I'm interested because I want to see the change. That's the connection I have between that and abstract painting. Because when I'm painting the abstract paintings, I allow for those surprises to happen that dictate the next move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then there's the oil. As cheesy as it sounds, oil versus acrylic thing, right?
What do you use?
Both.
Oh, okay. But not on the same painting.
Sometimes, of course, but I rarely start something in acrylic and go to oil. I love the surface, so I'll prime them and get them sanded down, get them really The best thing I ever painted on was rabbit skin glue and lead primed, canvas in Italy because I could afford it. Linen was cheap. But I fake that. So I get a rough weave canvas and then I gesso it and then I sand it, but then I keep putting thinner and thinner layers of kind of like a gel medium until it's kind of fast and grippy, like like the ink drawing. So I can work the brush.
That's nice. Yeah. I like that. That I could get with that.
So that's why the oil paintings I do in that. The acrylic I'm pouring paint and I'm taping sections and layering that way. So it's going to get more crunchy surface anyway, But I like the accidents, I know these are really about talking out loud on the canvas. And again, going back to playing music, when I play live, I have a song written that I'm going to play, but
it's actually interesting. We don't have any examples of the less figurative work that
here,
you were.
It's probably at home.
I'm curious. I want to see it now.
Yeah.
Because then it would give me some insight into where you're going to swing back to now, right? Like you said, like
some of those, like the gouache paintings on the walls are probably more just the like those two small. Those are more kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably this one, the one behind you with the Good Citizens, is the figures are more simplified and they might disappear and go back into the block shapes of the cinder block wall at some point. So
see that reads a little bit more graphic. This one, you get what I'm saying? So you do have the range.
Yeah.
And maybe I got the idea also because you talked about that one being Stonehenge, which obviously is monumental. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it is interesting to have that, like, it's an interesting thing to work through those sort of things that I don't really deal with the figure at all, and it because it's such a fucking challenge, right? And it is weighted in so much of that history. So it's interesting to even try, like it.
I guess it's the carrier for me that keeps me going to
the carrier.
Like it keeps carrying me along to sort of like, I know that's the next thing I want to try to it. Like I like always looking at the paintings the next day.
Yeah. Oh, I don't edit until like a month later.
Well, these interviews. And again, the studio's been nice because I had a home studio, Andrea and I both, for 20 years plus. That we made nice studio, but storage becomes a problem. So then to get this space takes about a half hour to get here. I love driving and giving myself little assignments of like.
When you told me you had 9 kids, I was like, where the fuck? How big is your house?
Oh yeah.
Because I knew you had that studio.
No, 2 kids. Everyone, audience. I'm sorry, I shouldn't joke about having many. But the idea of driving here and kind of thinking about what I'm going to get done while I'm here.
Is also a good structure.
It's a huge thing. It helped me, I think it does help me. And that's the other thing. Just in terms of nerdy assignments we give ourselves. On this one, I purposely am not using line. I'm just using shapes and seeing how they work. So, but it's weird. I mean, it's still dated. What I'm trying to do is like an old idea of painting.
Yeah, but I mean, the figure's never gone.
No, I guess you're right. I mean, that's why I'm hoping people connect. If one person kind of gets the human element in what I'm trying to do, it makes it sense. But also, Philip Guston, right? I mean, he changed figure-ground relationship.
What does that mean?
Well, a traditional figure-ground is, any Renaissance painting, Michelangelo, here's the horizon line, here's Madonna and Child, or, here's the sky, here's the earth, middle of the canvas. Another horizon line, house on the hill, people. Andrew Wyeth, figures in the front, or Rembrandt, here's the room, figure-ground. So the light follows the chiaroscuro of top to bottom. Mm-hmm. If you look at Guston's paintings, he changed the weight of within one painting. Like the whole bottom half might be all white and the top half dark. I mean, it's just the balance. And then again, I'm leaving out all these abstract painters that have influenced me tremendously. So going to grad school in the East Coast was a huge plus for me because.
Where'd you go?
Again, Tyler School of Art, which is Temple University.
Oh, so it's.
But they did a year in Rome and a year in Philly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But that was grad school?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was part of the grad program. I thought that was just like a year abroad for.
No. Undergrads could go too, but Temple has that. I mean, that's, to be honest, that's why I went. I could choose the Inland Empire, or because I got accepted to Claremont that year as well, which could have probably. I mean, Claremont is the buzzword, the hot spot everyone goes to, and it connects you to LA a lot better. But I lived a year in Rome, and it was incredible. And then as a college teacher, I took students there every summer for like 5 years. So and it really is a second home. I have family there. I mean, my kids have been there a bunch of times. My daughter studied overseas in France. I'm sure the Roman experience brought that travel bug. So.
I mean, it's really easy to travel over there, and
eat
it's
well.
and eat it's just But okay, so then going back to your roots, you came from Beirut. How old were you again? 7?
5.
5. Okay, so then you're pretty much a Cali boy, right?
Yeah,
like you grew up in.
But it's old immigrant world. I mean, aunts and uncles came, so in a 4-block radius, there was always.
Yeah, but you're a skater. You're in
that
punk.
happened. That happened in 13. Yeah,
13.
15. But the home life was all Armenian. We ate the food. We talked the language. The carpets were there.
Oh yeah. No, I didn't mean that. But I'm just saying.
I'm a California kid, definitely.
Yeah.
And skateboarding. Geez, who thought? That happened in the 70s. I started skating in 77, 76. And
were you skating vert?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
curbs first, but
you didn't come up in the street era.
No, that's way after. I was in the most mecca of skate parks around.
That's when fucking Tony Hawk was like doing well, and then afterwards he struggled because my generation of skaters came in.
And a lot of those folks, and again, I'm not bragging, but they're all friends, and Tony's still an incredible. He's still going. The movie that was just made on him was really great. But yeah, so I was in Whittier at a park called Skate City, which all those cats came to.
Yeah.
And they'd come from San Diego, they need a house to stay, they stay with you. It wasn't all the egos or any of that. It's like anything, I have to.
Well, I mean, back then the sport was fucking nothing. It was just it was a punk scene, and before you got even discovered.
And then there was Skatopia in Anaheim, Big O in Orange.
Were these public
pool parks, big pool parks? That's why.
Did you have to pay or?
Yeah. You become a member, you sign
a waiver.
A waiver of if you're going to break a leg or something, and. Upland had one. Del Mar and Oasis were down in San Diego. Reseda. I mean, there were.
And what town were you in living as a kid?
La Mierda.
La Mirada.
La Mirada. And Whittier is right there, so Skate City was there. But my point is, it was the 70s. This all bled over from surf culture, right? Which is very Orange County, Southern California. It was crazy because some of those pools were monster and not made well with bumps, kinks, and. That's what's fascinating now. If I watch the arc of it, every city has a skate park. Like, wow, I would have never dreamed that.
Miami, I still think still doesn't.
Some of my friends, like Lance Mountain, that's what he does. He goes around the world and builds pools. Like some of the dudes that came up that are super pro and know it and the finesse of how to build a pool make really good parks now, or pools. So to answer your question, I guess I was in California. And then the punk rock, of course.
Wait, when those venues that were pools, were those specifically built for the sport?
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus,
somebody
that's so crazy.
Invested a whole.
That's like a really bad investment.
Hey, screw you! Well, I think there was a momentum.
That's like starting a laser tag.
Well, it's like paint gun ball fight arenas.
I think you're like things that are trends and you're just betting hard on.
I commend the dude Ross Galati who bought Skate City. He was an optometrist. I think his kid skated, and he said,
I want a place for him to...
Let's try this skate park. No, but I'm telling you, Javier, there were...
He wasn't that great of a doctor if you...
No. He's a cool dude.
I'm fucking with you, sir. I apologize.
I'm adding up the pools. There was a clover, there was a kidney, there was a half pipe, there was a full pipe.
Whoa.
A capsule, and then a key.
How many people... That was the injury, the Widowmaker, the full pipe.
Not so much, because it probably got rode more at contests where people would do like stickers, like you go back, see how high people get, and then you put a sticker to see how.
Oh, yeah.
And if you went over vert. But my point was, it was a park that had 7 or 9 amazing pools within it. So these guys just didn't build a little... Yeah,
no, it's not like a backyard that had a pool and then they built a venue around it.
But that's why it's cool, because like the first places, I'm sorry, the audience is bored with skateboarding history.
How the fuck? No, I'm very interested in this.
Well, so it was concrete wave was what it sounds like. A long, angled, tilted wave.
Yeah, we have one in Lincoln Heights.
Yeah, it's more of carving and whatever. Skatopia was good. It had a half pipe, but like... That's what I'm saying. By the time Skate City came, which was built in 77, 78, they looked at all the other close parks and said, that pool's too huge. That one's too lumpy. Let's do it this way. Even like coping, some coping was gnarly over big, and then that's gotten to an art now, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and
then
I don't know.
The Van skate park, right in the orange block.
Is it still there?
They just closed. They built another one in Huntington Beach, but my point is that was like a pretty major in a shopping mall skate thing that really generated. That had its run early 2000s. To just last year they closed it. But so skating, it's a trip,
Well, but I think that probably there's definitely an aesthetic that comes with skating. I know that you wear a lot of skate clothes just because you get so much of it free because
I pay for this shit. No, I do anymore. I don't like it when the friends give me stuff free. I'm like, I want to support your company. I got to buy it. But you just grew up.
Going back to the DNA part of the conversation, tying it all in. I definitely think that it is enough of an aesthetic that like people that are part of that culture, at least in some level, sure. Can smell each other, even Molly's husband is also obviously a fucking skater.
There's a certain look, a certain way you hold your shoulders, but even like a subtlety of a beanie and
and just being a little weird with your fashion sense,
but again, that's your DNA, it's also like, and it's also like your political DNA and the human rights stuff, and like you grew up, because that's what trips me about skateboarding. Not to call out people, but like it, we all sang songs about Reagan and bad politics and doing the right thing, and then all those cats are now like white jocks, that sort of support Trump and sort of like are okay with being mean to each other and stuff, and it's like.
Are there a lot of skaters out there supporting Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I was shocked to see. Just mainly through social media, but people I know too, and I talked to that just sort of went that way. I get it. It's the power thing, the macho, the kind of I'm a bully, I can get away with it shit. That is kind of the punk spirit, like with a lot of the lamer people that use punk rock and violence for. I don't know. I just think it's a different idea of thinking of the world if you support that menace. So I'm like. You care nothing about other people, or it's a very selfish politic if you go that way. And not to get political, but even the party, for them to have that guy as their faceplate, it really says something about the way you think about the world.
I think he just kicked all of their asses. Unfortunately.
I don't know. They all stopped unfollowing me too, and then there's nothing. Yeah. But there's the conservative Christian thing too, and. They believe in that, and they support the pussy grabber. So I don't know.
Well, that's always weird. There is. Obviously, we've been talking about how we've been influenced by Christian art, so I don't want to be like shitting on the entire history of it. But hold on, let me.
Sorry.
No, it is stunning how many hippies, how many different like fucking people that were counterculture end up in that realm. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive, but a lot of the hippie, like that was the Jesus freaks. That was a huge thing. That's how Jamestown and shit like that came to be about. I'm a bit of a cult aficionado, but not aficionado. That's a weird way to put that. I have an affinity.
No, you've studied it. You're not saying it without ignorance, sure.
No, but it's an interesting thing. Like I wonder it can't just be the cliche that when you get older you get more conservative, because a lot of people don't go that way.
Well, I'm surrounded, most of the Armenians are hardcore Christians. I'm surrounded by the folks that love it for the community, the safety, and it is like everyone thinks the same, right? But, the idea is everyone's worshiping this thing in a book that was written that long ago by a certain group of people, and things have changed in our civilizations that don't apply. So or the harsh judgment of it. That's what gets me. These are the folks that judge my gay friends or my, people that have pink hair or something. And it's like, really?
Although pink hair used to not be an LGBT thing. It used to be a punk thing.
I meant back then a punk thing. Like a friend would show up to dinner when they look kind of weird, and
the Armenian family.
People like get so upset, like you're wearing creepers and somebody's got studs on their leather jacket and that they're going to be a thug and kill somebody. But that all goes back to insecurities, I guess, really all of it's about insecurities. But currently, just yesterday, it was good news if you look at, they're going to move forward with prosecuting that garbage mouth, right? But he still might get away with it because the way the laws are written made and for by the rich, right? But people are still supporting that. And somebody broke that many laws, and tried to burn the Capitol down.
I'm so ambivalent on Trump. I saw how much he's affected so many people. I've tried to not internalize that. I mean, I totally get what he does to people, and so I think that Trump is a weird guy, but I can sort of understand. I think that like a lot of people also liked him. I'm from Florida, so I know a lot of good people that supported him.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily anti-LGBT. So anyway, I'm just saying that not every Trump supporter is a conservative hate. I mean, I guess you kind of have to be, but I'm uninvested. I get people that are. I totally get people that are. I'm more worried about other things, but other political things. But I don't like. Yeah. I'm not here to tell you that Trump was a good guy.
I'm not. Don't want to bore your audience. Yeah. I mean, we're probably preaching to the choir. With most educated artists, folks are not into him at all. But I just think, on the fundamental basis of what that person represents and people get behind him, I'm shocked.
Yeah, I think that he's a nebulous character, or I think that he's a character that you can project a lot of things on. And I think that there are a lot of people that are Christian that, even though he is a peak grabber, don't really care, because he's like,
oh well, he got their judges in, and he did all the conservative things.
I was gonna say he made Jerusalem, which is like in biblical terms a good push towards the apocalyptic thing that we were doing during the Iran war or the war in Iraq, and a lot of that. Like there's definitely a problematic Christian bent that a lot of people that are in the GOP. Like, back in the Iraq War, they were selling guns that had Christian slogans on it and shit like that. And the stuff, like we do stuff like we dip, or I know that might be let's just not talk about it.
Yeah. I think we're boring everyone probably, but
but anyway,
why did I bring him up? Oh no, the skateboard culture. I was just, again.
But I think that in context of how you brought him up, I think that just like there are people that support politicians for the wrong reasons, I think there's a lot of people that are misjudged, because he was saying things that really excited people. Like he was shutting down, like he was talking a big game about like being like what was it that he said? He's like, the system is rigged. I know because I use it, right? Like I think that a lot of people just, with a figure like Trump, you just pick what you like from him, because he's making such a ruckus and he gets people so angry, right? That it's like it's almost, you almost support him to be a contrarian, and that's where I see a lot of that. Like what you already made that point, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think that there is like a very scary thing in this country about like the way that we do a lot of stuff.
Well, it opened up the freedom for people, like I said, to be racistly mean and chauvinistically mean, and again,
openly for sure. I would definitely agree with that.
So anyway, enough of that. I think everybody knows what we're saying.
Yeah, no.
Well, again, I just want to be clear. I'm not, and even those skateboarder dudes, that's fine. I'm just surprised that the way they act differently to you. And I've tried to have civil conversations with people. Like, if it's about this, let's talk about it.
Yeah. I don't even try anymore.
I know.
The last time I did it, I was talking to my friend who was a libertarian.
Oh yeah, see, there's another.
Well, no, the thing is that he's like completely switched up his politics, and it was really frustrating to try to pin down where he was at now, because he used to be just funny.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Like, because like libertarians, to me, they really have no power, so they're just like people huffing in the wind. Just like
or I almost say no commitment, because we are a two-party country. Like, you got to pick which side you're gonna move with. Anyway.
Yeah.
Other subjects. So, if that's my thesis, I'm really. I think everybody's got the idea. I mean, we all grew up with stuff, and I finally feel I'm at a point now at 57 where I'm trying to collaborate the best of those two worlds, and enjoying looking for the answers in different ways in the painting.
Yeah.
And it's that allowance to not feel so pressured to, I mean, I think we talked about it. I still have this like Armenian guilt, right? Like that's what's in me.
Where does that come from?
Oh,
is it survivor's guilt?
It's like survivor skill. It's also like you came all this way to go to college and you became an artist.
Oh, yeah. So immigrant.
The immigrant guilt thing of like all my cousins are doctors and lawyers. And again, to my dad's case, he stayed in Beirut as the oldest brother in the family, and he supported his brothers that came, like he put them to college to come here to UCLA or whatever, and they became doctors and engineers. And so when he came here, he just brought his family. You know, he waited for them, and he came and he worked here as a construction worker basically for 9 years until he died. Just that whole thing of like, you're going to college, you're going to be a graphic designer, right? You're going to be something more money making than you're going to sit in front of an easel and paint your whole life. But it's like most cultures, the art thing isn't really trusted as a career move, right? Unless you're really affluent, you can just kind of float with it and not worry about money. But even coming here to the studio, it's like, all right, you better make this worthwhile. You're here. So it's just more go time. I'm kind of like, it's a good discipline. I think.
No, it definitely is.
I guess but it's discipline with freedom to sort of move around in the space too. And again, big props to my studio mate, Serge. We've mentioned him, and he's been a dream. I mean, when I was on a waiting list to get a spot here in Bendix for about 6 months, and then the space opened up. It's about 1,200 square feet, and I needed a partner. And he's in museum adjacent with me as well. That's another great collective.
You mentioned Max is that the same Max from TAM?
Yeah, Max that works at Torrance Art Museum is one of the founders of Durden and Ray.
Okay.
The English guy. He's got that.
Yeah. He's a little
totally understandable accent.
Yeah.
Kidding, Max. And then Serge, okay, that's a good segue. Then Serge and I were part of TAM Forum, which was a residency at Torrance Art Museum.
With Molly Schulman also.
Molly Schulman
who's
was
been
in
on
there.
The show.
Sharon Levy.
Dakota Newt.
Dakota was in there. Sharon, Dakota, Christina.
Oh, we don't list everyone because then we're going to leave someone out.
Well, my point is it was cool. Like 9 of us moved over. Oops, I bumped the mic. 9 of us moved over and made Museum Adjacent as a collective from that. Mm-hmm. And a few dropped off. Kim Mara and Dakota actually left because they got their own careers going. And
Dakota's fucking taking off.
Yeah, Dakota's going through the roof. Yeah, and more power to him. And
no, that's great for him.
But while that was going on, I was invited to be part of Durden and Ray, so I joined that too. Yeah. And then
he also left Monte Vista, so I wouldn't take it personally.
Oh, Dakota,
yeah, around the same time, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, and then also the great news is, like Carl Barada, who we've mentioned, who's the mayor of the Bendix.
Yeah.
He's amazing, beautiful human. Carl, hope does he listen to these things?
I doubt it.
He's like,
I doubt
it. Dude, I try. I don't have time.
No, that guy has no time for anything.
He is amazing. The high beam stuff, him and Sean and, Katya and Danny, and those guys pull together high beams in such great ways. So there's so many great collective things happening too that I'm stoked about, So Durden and Ray is great, but it's like you said, you guys are, Monte Vista's about 14. We got 26. Yeah. It's definitely more of a big collective group of people that can contribute to making something happen easier because there's so many. But, you don't, with COVID, you don't get to see everyone all the time. We're just starting to get back into in-person.
Yeah, we're also having, we still do meetings. We're mostly a Zoom crew. I saw Amanda Mears, who's another member of Monte Vista, at an open studio.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize her because I've only seen her on Zoom. And so yeah.
Well, it's true that there were some Durden and Ray folks that
you didn't recognize. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this scene is pretty neat. I think everybody's really supportive. And I think that it's just cool to see so many different people with so many different approaches to, so many different DNAs, to use your quote. But I think it is an interesting idea because where do your DNAs line up, right? In that sense. And I think that one of the ones that I'm definitely picking up on, you, Carl, and Justin, there is something that, having spent time in that city, that we have an understanding about, that it's a historical context. It's really hard to understand what it's like to be in a place that old.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
When you're out here, there's nothing that old. And
you
like,
go to the East Coast and see like 200-year-old buildings,
but to see like shit like dude, from before Christ or before Common Era.
Yeah. Well, and I was fortunate. I went to Morocco,
Christian era,
and I went to Morocco when I was in Rome, and it's even there's still.
I've always wanted to go to Istanbul because that's where everybody who was a Roman wanted to live.
Yeah. And I can't go there.
Oh no, yeah, I guess you can't.
Well, I don't really want to go there.
But they wouldn't let you in.
Oh, you can go in, but
would you be treated weird?
I don't know about these days, but I definitely know in the late '90s, I had a cousin who went through, and they kind of took his stuff, and he had a credit card with Mount Ararat on it, the mountain, the picture, and they gave him all his stuff back, but the mountain was cut out of the credit card.
That seems so petty.
Yes and no, though. That's the level of deep. My only problem.
Why not just not give you the credit card?
My only problem with that. No, it's almost like a later jab. I guess I've never really met a Turkish person that ever admitted that the genocide happened, and that's kind of disturbing. They play it off. They're like,
that might be to do with like.
Well, if you're younger, they're like, oh, that's old history. That's just stuff they talk about. It never,
Well, I mean, I'm saying like we don't really study our own genocides as Americans.
Educated people do. I mean, we could acknowledge Native American things at least. People talk
but
about
that's old history.
Well, or current, or even like
Yemen and stuff like that.
Well,
you get what I'm saying? Like we don't openly sit there and think about the horrible things that we do. It's actually really crazy.
But wait, I don't want to leave the topic. Back to the collectives and that DNA. Generational DNA is also something I'm really interested in too. In that, the artists I've aligned myself with and hung out with in the last 5 or 8 years. Really, I love the younger gen that's coming out that's doing stuff, and I think that's so reflective of culturally what's going on with visual overload, with and I mean even the JPEG phenomenon and doing stuff on my students. They do stuff on their iPads and digitally create. They'll never get the light source of looking at something and drawing it, because it's backlit on this screen and the colors are, what I mean? It's so even like this semester we're doing collage. I physically make them collage things, before they paint it, and they want to just do something quick on their digital pad. I'll take both if you're doing, but I'm like, do it physically too, because then when you go to make that brush stroke or draw that charcoal drawing or whatever, you're just already kind of wired into how to do it. But generationally, I'm really fascinated. Like Dakota, like Serge. I mean, he's so much younger than me, but I think we're akin spirits for sure. We connect. But back to, that's how we met, was Tam, and then we broke off and became a collective. And when I needed a studio partner, and you did his whole thing. He survived that terrible studio fire in Little Tokyo. So he had another studio, but this really allowed him to come. I think he always wanted to be in this building.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody wants to be. I wanted to be in this building.
Yeah, I just thought it would never happen because it got so expensive and and it's not that expensive, but it just went from kind of a few. Like Habib's the first guy I know. Then Habib, right?
For 515.
But I mean, he did Post off 7th, in downtown forever, and he's a kingpin. I just think that guy.
Yeah.
Then even going back to abstract paintings, there's a lot of painters I just admire so much, and he's really somebody who.
Well, I think what makes the community special is that it's all people that are hustling. It's all people
that for sure.
It's like people that would feel weird if they just came home from work and played video games all day. Not that I don't also do that, but
Don't you do that?
I do that like crazy. I do that too much, but at the same time, I do make time for making work.
Yeah.
So, because the thing is, I can watch YouTube all day while I make work.
Oh, wow. Mine is like the schlepping. And, I noticed I didn't come here on Sunday, and I felt so guilty, but I was like, I finished finals week last week, and I drove to San Diego Friday, and I played a gig on Saturday, and I'm just like, I'm pretty tired. I don't know if I need to go to the studio. But and most of us that have a daily job, and we feel like, okay, that's done. Now I got to go make the work. I think we have that pressure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to. It's a hard balance to keep up, and it's hard not to feel guilty about not pushing that forward every chance you get. I totally relate to that.
Well, and then the social media pressure, right? You see people You know, there's that weird competition. If people are doing well, you're sort of like, oh shit, I'm still just trying to make my paintings, you know. But
that's true. And it's a balance, because I mean, I do see I see like the success that Dakota's having, Dakota Newt, and I'm like, fuck, man, all I gotta do is like work.
Yeah, no, and he's very fortunate. I mean, he has a partner, Christopher, who's also a very,
who helps him shoot,
aggressive artist, you know, photographer. But you know, I think it's just your agenda.
Yeah.
And again, if you are making a living doing something like part-time teaching, and you make enough and you can put all your time in the studio, that's awesome. You know?
Yeah. And that's basically the challenge that most people have.
Yeah, I think
it's like figuring out, like it's an entourage of people just figuring out how to keep making work.
Well, going back to your community thing, aside from the Bendix building, I think the relationships I've had and met with these folks in the last 5-10 years have been great. Just because, you know, it's the LA I was curious about and kind of wanted to know. And
so you weren't that active in the scene.
I was, but more here and there. You go to, if someone had an opening, you go to openings. But you know, there was a time.
Now you're entrenched. I mean, now you're pretty entrenched.
Well,
I see you.
Before that, Andrea and I, we go out on a weekend and do that thing where you go across town to 5 different shows. Start in Culver City, you go to Chinatown.
Oh yeah.
But if you didn't really know people, I mean, it was a great place to meet and hang out and see people. But I was so entrenched in my college job, to be honest with you. I just really wanted to be a good teacher and build a program. Then I did. Yeah. But it compromised this part, you know. So now I can retire in about 5 or 6 years, which is great. You know, but
congratulations on that.
Well, you know, I've been at the school 25 years, so it's like, okay, 30 years you can retire. You know, it's like, but great job, raised my family. I mean, you know, that's the other thing. I'm a dad. I was.
But are you only teaching, or are you an administrator there as well?
No, I'm only teaching now. I was department chairs. I've been on numerous committees. I'm still on the hiring committees and certain things, but the department chair thing will kill you. You know, it's just extra. It's managing. It's extra time. It's like, you know.
Yeah, but, it's like a fourth job on top of being a musician and an artist.
Yeah, and I was all in that when the budget crisis hit, you know, laying people off, and it was tough. But then I went on sabbatical for a year, and I came back just renewed, and like, all I got to do is teach these beautiful kids that want to learn how to paint. Wow, you know. And then COVID's been a trip, because that was tough as hell for everyone, students and faculty, to, you know.
Yeah. I can't imagine going to school and fucking paying that much money. I would have just fucking asked for my money back.
Well, the arc most of us educators have seen is the, you know, they probably ended high school remotely. Yeah. And they grew up texting, so they only know this. They know computer screens. Then they may have had a class at the college starting remotely, and now they're just going back and they really don't. I'm not dissing them. I'm very.
No, it's unfortunate. It's been done to them.
I'm empathetically like, they don't know how to socialize.
Yeah, it's been done to them. It's not something they had any control over.
But the joy is they've just accelerated and became communities of, you know, like going out. They came here. They came to the fundraiser.
I saw them.
They got to see my studio. We're just like, that hasn't happened in a while, where a group of kids are just like, hey, let's drive downtown LA. And you know.
No, they haven't been able to, which is, I'm sure, how a lot of LA artists came up.
Yeah.
So, well, cool, man. Anything that you want to add? Anything that we've left out? Any thoughts? Anything that I cut you off on?
You didn't cut me off. I hope I've said anything important for people to get inspired by. No, I'm just very grateful. Thank you.
This. You should feel confident, because this is an all over the place podcast. Sometimes we touch a little politics, then we dip our toe, and then we go out. And then the skateboarding, I think, is probably, I don't care if there people are bored by that shit. I'm interested in, because I didn't grow up in a scene like that. That's the scene that was glorified in the movie that made me want to skateboard, which was a movie that was released in Italy in the 1980s. I forget, like, it must have been 87, 88. It's Josh Brolin. I'm sure you've seen it. There's like a big downhill race at the end of it. It was like a completely different concept.
Che cosa? Che il nome? What's the name of the movie?
It's called Thrashing Corsa al Massacro.
Oh, well, there was Thrashing. Was
Thrashing. Yeah. So, but it was like the subtext is Race to the Death.
Oh, Race to the Death.
In Italian, Corsa al Massacro. So that movie came out, and the next day everybody had a skateboard.
Oh,
it played on state media, and it was like I went out, everybody got a skateboard the next day.
Right. So the quote I want to say before we leave was a quote from Dizzy Gillespie, which is, popular culture rises from the bottom, not the top.
Yeah.
And, he was talking about jazz and blues coming from black slaves to playing Cotton Club. But look at punk rock, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
No, and look
at rap music. I mean, it came
Look at what happened to Colbert and all these people that were like counterculture and edgy figures that once they start doing really well, it's really hard to be like it's really hard to be a badass when you're comfortable, when you're that comfortable.
Yeah. But I mean, all those things like skateboarding, you didn't know. It's just people that have been loving to do it. And to that point, so again, I was very fortunate to be friends with the Bones Brigade guys like Lance Mountain, Tony Hawk, Steve Kevlar.
Yeah.
When they started going to Italy, and that Stacy Peralta had the foresight to do this thing with skating to make it global and really produce. When they started going worldwide and like seeing kids in magazines like riding cobblestone streets with shit, and you're like, that weird jacked up ramp they had made.
Well, it's not only cobblestones, but there are places, there are cities like Florence is a little hard to skate. But Rome has enough asphalt where you can and it has great spots. So especially in the Mussolini era.
What's it called? Frati over there or something?
Eur is like the general area. It's like it's a swamp that he drained and then made like into the modernist or futurist.
What's the street skating like in Venice?
It's more like surfing,
skimboarding, and
or like that hydro thing that people do. Yeah. Anyway, man, anything we can promote for you?
No.
What's your Instagram? What's your...
Oh, yeah. My Instagram's just my name, Hagop Najarian.
Before I knew you, when I used to read your thing, your name was Hagopian to my... Because I'm dyslexic
because you saw there are Hagopians. There's Sarkisians. There's Gregorians. They put the IA in on the end.
Yeah.
No, I wish I could say I got a big show coming up, but... I mean, Durden and Ray, keep look on my posts. I also run the Facebook Durden and Ray stuff. We got a lot of international stuff coming up for the new year. And Museum Adjacent, we're trying to get things kicking again. But right now, I'm very fortunate. I just get to play music and paint. And
that sounds pretty sweet, man.
Live my life.
I'm not going to lie.
Well, no, you work hard for it. Like I said, it's a choice. My wife and I, Andrea's been, I got to plug her. I found my lid in Armenian culture. We talk your lid, but to find someone that also makes art and loves.
There's a metaphor in Armenian culture about a jar and a lid.
Well, when you find your lid, it's like your gaparich, your cap. You're sort of.
I've never heard that. That's awesome.
I'm using hand jive.
Yeah, I get it.
No, and as Andrea's a great artist, and having her,
she's a great. I've invited her on the show. She was a little shy, or she was not ready.
I think it was the beard.
It was a beard, yeah.
No. She's been extremely busy.
She's like, I have enough Armenian-looking motherfuckers in my life.
He's like, yeah, you could be his brother. No, and then she's got stuff coming up. That's why she's part-time. Part-timers busy right now teaching. And anyway, very fortunate to have a great home and.
And
then my son became an artist, right?
Oh,
That's the other thing.
you fucked up,
You
man.
try to beat it out of him, but he's a very successful storyboarder. And then my daughter does this great international marketing stuff, translation stuff worldwide. So I'm a blessed man. And thank you. Again, the Bendix is great. The community's awesome.
No, this is a great place to be, man. And it's you've always been very friendly and very nice. It's very...
Yeah, that guy gets full circle back to the paintings. If we have a choice to make images and celebrate something, I'm trying to make some kind of positive, optimistic human push forward.
Yeah.
So we'll end on that because...
Yeah, I'm also in the turn cynicism into something that's nice.
Yeah, no, you're kind of a dark bastard the more we talk.
Oh, no, I am dark as fuck. I'm like...
I'm surprised
I wouldn't be here if I didn't start taking medicine.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I didn't cuss much in this thing, so I guess I did okay.
No.
You cussed more than I did. My wife
cuss.
is like, don't go in there and cuss the fuck out. But I'm like, no.
Well, you fucked it up right now.
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll be back next week with another great guest with another topic that may or may not be art related. I feel like today was pretty art related.
Yeah.
But it's okay when it's not.
We can edit the excessive parts, I guess. Anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you, Javier. And What's My Thesis is awesome. So
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
He has no crew, by the way, everyone. You got to put this in there. He shows up with a big roll bag and these cameras and tripods. And I kind of look good probably with this lighting, but no, the sound equipment is incredible. I'm very impressed. So
thank you, man.
Bravo,
I appreciate
man,
that.
for a solo effort. This is a really great thing. So.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I didn't even know people didn't know it was a solo effort until you told me.
Well, I hope I didn't let the cat out of the bag. I mean, wait, he's got a 10-man crew. He pays them all out of his pocket.
I flog everybody. All right, we'll see you guys.
Love Benny. All right, hey, happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy your people.
Peace out.
Ciao.